Yes. Hello, Manoj.
Okay, perfect. Russell, over to you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, so good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome to Opinion Unlocked. This is a series brought to you by the Informatics Institute of Technology in collaboration with Articulate Asia. So the running theme across these upcoming episodes will, of course, be cybersecurity. And we have some noteworthy names lined up for discussion over the next 4 weeks, including corporate leaders and change makers. So, of course, the debate for today is themed Cybersecurity, the next geopolitical battleground. And joining us today, we have some eminent personalities who need no introduction, but of course, it should be my honor-bound duty to introduce them to our beloved audience as well. So firstly, I would like to welcome today Mr. Asela Baidyalankara, who is a prominent cybersecurity advisor. I would like to warmly welcome Mrs. Nisa Bithana, who is a director from Meta Defense Labs, and of course, Dr. Parakum Patrana, who is the Chief Operating Officer at LOLC Technology Services. And of course, last but not least, not forgetting our moderator of the entire series of Opinion Unlocked, Mr. Sudip Christie, who is the director at Layer 7 Seguro Consultoria. So we have these gents and lady here with us for the next hour, and we do encourage you to share all the questions on the chat box below. And with that said and done, I would like to leave you in the capable hands of Mr. Sudip Christie to take over. Sir, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you, Rasula. Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words and introduction. Good evening, all. And I think we have a lot of people joining, not just from Sri Lanka, but across the world, if I may guess. I'm not able to see everyone, but I greet you all for taking time for being with us this evening. So our objective today is to make this a very interesting and a fruitful session to talk about the theme. The big subject is nation states. We're talking about capabilities which are beyond comprehension, right? So we are also going through a time where people are like discovering secrets, stealing corporate data, intellectual property, corrupting individuals through political disinformation, spying on specific targets, disrupting operations, and destroying critical infrastructure of the other nations. So when I say nations, not necessarily limiting to a government. We are also talking about commercial operation, private sector, public sector, and the NGOs included. So there are several state actors. They are trained, they're well-resourced to carry out specific missions in any country for that matter, right? And then there are several reputed researchers who have published various articles. It's available on the internet. Then we also keep hearing about advanced persistent threats. Now, these threat actors or the groups are well-funded, are very resourceful, right? So some of them can be funded by the governments, some of them can be non-state actors as well. They're well organized, highly skilled, experienced, and of course, very well determined. They have, of course, strategic modes of operations. So what motivates them? Or why are we even talking about this? Because there is a struggle for superiority, dominance, right? And they're also talking about relevance among the developed and developing countries globally. Superiority and influence are determined by certain aspects like military strength, economic success, and resources that a country possesses. And that's the reason why we are talking about cyber attacks, cyber terrorism, and we are also talking in the context of the next battlefield, the cyberspace. The first time I heard about a nation state attack was in way back in 2007, where Estonia was in the headlines. And I think they were attacked. Internet blackout was caused for several days. For several days, they did not have internet, and most of the country was non-functional. So with all these things in the background, right, we also see a lot of statistics. There are a lot of research journals, lots of organizations, they do surveys. Some do it annually, some do it quarterly. I want to just pick one particular survey which was published by the Security Magazine, securitymagazine.com. So the stats goes this way, right? In 2017, there was 42% increase in cyber attacks attributed to foreign governments. Cyber attacks tied to cyber war or geopolitical conflict increased from 19% in 2018 to 27% in 2019. And in North America, they are also saying that the attribution due to nation states is at 36%. Now, I do not have actual figures in the context of Sri Lanka or the region. Right? In the past 12 months, or ever since we have been experiencing this lockdown, I've heard more than 100 plus organizations, both state and non-state or private sector organizations, have been victims of cyber attacks. Right? These are not published results, but it's just that hearsay from here and there. So these are coming to you. We have documented statistics in countries like the North American region, Europe, or the Asia Pacific region. Should we really worry about these statistics in the context for Sri Lanka or the region as SAARC region? Is it something which we need to be worried about? What is your take on this?
Thank you, Sujit, and thanks for asking that question. So my short answer is yes, it's absolutely necessary. But let me also begin by saying that, everything I discuss here are my personal views and that don't represent my company, my clients, or any other party. So moving back to your question, Sujit, I think, it is that every day we kind of wake up to a battle space, right, with the context of computers, online control systems, and networks operated and managed by people, despite which part of the world we live in. So cyber attacks hit businesses every day, and while some companies know that they've been compromised, there is like vast majority are blissfully unaware, and they're like heading for a ruin. So I think in the context, the impact of cyber attack can be varied by the target and severity. And some attackers also can gain access to computer systems and take control over countries' critical infrastructure. We saw that, like you mentioned, we saw it very recently, the Colonial Pipeline attack in the US. Millions of people were affected, right? And with billions of economic damage. So I think we should not only look at only the economic scale of damage, but also the reputational damage. So when it comes to reputational damage, which part of the world you're living is not an issue, because we are already in this, we have become netizens now. We are already become part of it. So imagine the attackers get control over our power grids, the airport control systems, stock markets, or our banking systems. These are just few areas which can cause massive destruction to a country's peace and harmony. So I think in terms of the business context, even if you run like a one-man business or a large corporate, I think your priority should be to protect your own crown jewels, and always think of what happens if you don't have access to your business information when you wake up tomorrow morning. So just think and see if you can survive without it. Can you run your business without your computer systems, without your business information, and how long you can survive? and without them, how fast you can recover. So answers to these questions will probably find the answers to Sujit's question, and as to how serious we should be, or why it is important for us, although we don't find any data, or although we live in this part of the world. Yeah, I hope I answered your question, Sujit.
Yes, Nisa, you did. Of course. I mean, just to add a few observations, right? And I think we are in a era where we cannot live with connectivity, right? This pandemic has, forced us to be connected. Now, that's one of the reasons why we are all on this call, right? Otherwise, we would probably in a hotel having a face-to-face session. But look at our life, our family lives, our personal lives. We are all connected, right? So the dependency on networking, the cyber has become paramount. Right? So today, I think with this particular situation, what we are seeing is the borders between countries are also have diminished. Right? When we are connected to the internet, where is my border? Where is the border for Sri Lanka? Where is the border for India? Or where is the border for Malaysia? Or where is the border for UAE for that matter, right? So it's just one click away. It's just one click away that the countries are, or the next infrastructure is. And what we also see, right? I'm just trying to focus on ASEAN. The good thing and the bad thing, right? I mean, today, if I were to build a missile or a attack mechanism, it's going to cost me a lot of money. But in terms of building a toolkit and using it the way I want it, at the time I want it, it becomes so sophisticated and it doesn't cost so much of money. Right? And we saw that in the SolarWinds attacks as well, right? I mean, it was done in stages, and they also had a way of ensuring switching on, switching it off. So traceability also was becoming very, very difficult. So the question I want to ask you is, today, when the attacks happen, it is not limited to one single geography. Right? SolarWinds is one instance. Nisa, you spoke about the colonial pipeline attack, right? And one thing which is close to our home is the Bangladesh bank heist, right? So many countries. How important is it to have regional cooperation to combat cyber terrorism? Asel?
First of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and having me on the panel, Suji. Segueing into your question, it's a vital question because of the times that we live in. COVID-19, we've seen an explosion of digitization, digital activity, and especially an explosion in remote working. And because of that, the threat landscape has changed. The threat actors have changed, and whatever the threats that we are facing has grown exponentially. It's basically, just to quote research, they've seen a surge of about 200 to 300% increase in cybercrime, as well as other malicious activity. Now, if you take the topic as well on regional cooperation and cyber security, as well as geopolitics, why we need regional cooperation is when you look at different countries and different legal systems and different maturities when it comes to cybersecurity. It's absolutely vital that there should be some sort of coordination and a standard set of processes or norms internationally of how we handle such incidents, because not only will a critical infrastructure attack, which is possibly the focus that has gained a lot of attention because of the recent cybersecurity incidents that happened, especially in the colonial pipeline attack. We saw after that, the United States literally said that any ransomware incidents will be treated like a terrorism. Then we had the G7 speaking specifically on the threats posed to critical infrastructure on by ransomware and other cyber attacks. And this is at very high global level discussions. So we see there is a conversation that is happening, especially within nations, about how do we partner, how do we cooperate. Because why the cooperation is necessary is because, like you very correctly mentioned, these incidents transcend borders. It's a borderless crime. And also there are state actors as well as non-state actors that could disrupt the global economy. So I will take the example of the Colonial Pipeline attack. We saw that half of the United States lost their fuel supply, which is absolutely catastrophic considering that country. Now, for the sake of hypothesis, imagine if an entity like Saudi Aramco or a shipping entity is targeted, and global supply chains, global oil prices are affected. If we do not have a regional cooperation or a platform to cooperate among countries because of the nature of these attacks and how they're distributed among various locations, we will find it difficult to have a response, because sometimes the onus is not only in one country to give a response. The onus is on several countries to work together to formulate a common response to these attacks. And we have to, similarly along the lines of terrorism, similarly along the lines of how we treat international criminals, that is the sort of cooperation and coordination that we require in terms to look at these attacks and how we manage these attacks. I use the word manage because the growth of these attacks will always be exponential, but it is now up to global leadership, global cooperation, and global entities to come together to work on a common set of values that we can use to take this forward in how we cooperate with each other when and if such an attack takes place. And finally, the danger is this: if we don't have cooperation, for example, NATO has said if there is a cyber attack of one of their countries that are participants to the NATO, they will invoke Article 5, which is a military response. The United States has taken a very aggressive approach that any of its critical national infrastructure is attacked, there will be military options are not off the table. We have seen certain instances that countries have responded to cyber attacks with actual airstrikes. So with the maturity level now is whatever happens online may actually spill over to offline and offline violence. And this is why it's absolutely critical, because there might be a threat actor who will orchestrate an attack to make sure that one country or one entity is framed. And we know digital forensics is a tedious process. It takes a little while to unravel all this, like we discovered in SolarWinds. And imagine within a short period of time, if countries do take drastic military action, irreversible military action, then without a rules-based cooperation, it will be catastrophic to the global geopolitics as well as global security. I want to understand Parakum's insights also into this. So I'll give it back to Suji.
Thank you. So Para, I think stemming from what Asela and Nisa mentioned, now all these attacks to material, it is presumed that you can exploit, do forensics analysis, and eventually when results are published, there is always evidence pointing to an insider, intentional activity or unintentional activity. Now there are two things I want to hear from you, Para. When I say intentional, are we seeing a trend where the state actors or non-state actors can take advantage of the current prevailing economic conditions caused by the COVID and influence them to part with maybe classified information or proprietary information? So that's one part of the question. The other one is, are organizations paying attention to this? Para, what do you think?
Okay, right. So Sujit, if we start with the first one, I mean, I just did a bit of a
Para, we are losing you.
Para is not audible.
Yes, Para, you're not audible. We lost you. Inosh, can you call him on the mobile?
Can you hear? Okay.
Now can hear you, Parapon.
Right. I'm sorry. I think our um, business continuity needs to kick in. So as I was saying, so I did a bit of research trying to find out what are the oldest or rather what are the oldest insider threats or other attacks at this level, state level. So I could find an interesting article from 1982 where CIA has penetrated into Russian pipelines, right? So the phenomena has been there. I mean, it's an old one, but I believe like we really started to notice insider threats probably. I would say maybe in the case of John Snowden, where like somebody with access, somebody working for agency for NSA. So he had admin access, and then it's believed that he siphoned some files from a USB drive. Then again, I believe somewhere in 2010, 2013, there was another case where this Bradley Manning, taking some classified information on a CD, I mean, he labeled it as Lady Gaga songs, right? So all these guys had access. So again, now we noticed during this US elections, US accusing Russia of, meddling with their electoral system. So I believe whoever, I mean, it's not something only we see on this cyber phenomena, but as in everything, people who has the power or know-how, they are trying to exploit it for their gain. I mean, we see a lot of interest now on technologies like 5G, AI, big data. So again, it looks like, China and everyone is on a race. So one side focuses on wealth creation, and then again on creating jobs for the future. So yes, it definitely looks like, states are on play by, if you go through this recent research published. The second question, I mean, Suji, second question is whether organizations are doing enough. I believe there is a lot we can do, but we need to see now how effective it is. Now, say if you take insider threats, I believe, my belief now, if we take last 2 to 3 years, our focus has been completely on ransomware, not really on any other attack. But I mean, I saw the same reference that Sujit gave somewhere in Security magazine. They have said the insider threat attacks have increased from 2018 to 27, a 47% increase. So this is also growing, right? And if you look at in terms of damages, it's increased from 8.76 million to 11.45 in 2020. So it's a growing threat, but probably last 2 to 3 years, I believe due to this, I mean, we had a lot of press coverage on ransomware, even in Sri Lanka. So we have not talked much about insider threats, but if you really take, I mean, if you take any analysis coming from ISACA, ISC2, even from an audit point of view, insider threat is something that we were taught to look at. So if you look at what organizations can do, I mean, so in insider threats, I believe the problem here is there could be a couple of angles that we can look at. Now, there could be somebody really collaborating with the perpetrator, like in the case of this Bangladeshi central bank heist, as Sujit mentioned. So or rather the trouble or the trick here is, I mean, these guys, if you take people like system administrators, right? They have keys to the kingdom. I mean, they can go anywhere, right? They don't see perimeter firewalls. They don't see whatever we have already trusted them. So the question is, how can we detect the activities? So I have noticed on many platforms, right? If you take many platforms that we use, so one possible avenue is, okay, they're coming up with machine learning techniques. So they're looking at users' normal behavior during the day, whether there are any exceptions, they'll trigger it. So that's one area we could look at. And policies and procedures, of course, they needs to be there, right? And most importantly, awareness. So it could be, you know, I mean, people need to be able, I mean, you could have a set of policies, but if people are not aware, then hardly any use. So that's how I would go about it, Sujit.
Exactly, Parakumar. So you touched on several things, right? I mean, just not going to go back into what you mentioned. What I also want to highlight is the organizations definitely have to pay attention to who they entrust their crown jewels to. And then very especially when you're looking at a supply chain where you're dependent on your suppliers. Now, one of the questions I think what we have to ask or probably emphasize a lot are my supplier security schema or the posture better than my own organization? If they are not, then they probably we are lacking in that space, right? But I'm just going to come back and probably the next round we probably take a few audience questions, and there are a few interesting ones, right? And we have with us Dr. Binod from Nepal. He heads the Banking, Financial, and Insurance Institute, BFIN they call it, right? And Dr. Binod, thank you for the question. And he's asking, I mean, the region is starved or lacks the necessary skills. So how should the BFSI segment, being a critical information infrastructure, what should they be focusing? At least 2-3 points as a takeaway. How do you bridge the knowledge gap and the skill gap? Para? And then we just go on to the other questions, and I will take it to Nisa and Asela.
Bit of a tricky question, I would say. So it's all depending on where your key infrastructure is.
Where we lost you again. Still mute.
Can you hear? Hi. Sorry. I think this headset is not really cooperating with me. So, I believe it depending on where your key infrastructure is. So if you're now generally, if you're in the BFI sector, banking sector, you are not allowed to have your infrastructure. There are restrictions if you have to move it to cloud. So if you are on-prem, probably you will have to worry about your on-prem infrastructure. Then again, there are a lot of challenges that you come in your way, like, if you're on cloud, certain things you can buy and you may probably get best of the breed resources at you only need to spend less dollars to get the same sort of coverage. So probably, by looking at your key infrastructure, you can look at resources. Now, again, the bodies like ISAC and ISC2, they do a lot of activities to bridge this gap. So where they produce sort of vendor neutral professionals. So Here in Sri Lanka, again, government with CERT, they are doing a lot of activities. I mean, recently also they did a sort of a workforce survey sort of a thing, especially looking at the cybersecurity workforce. So my take would be, I mean, if you're in the banking sector, probably I see Sri Lanka, China, this part of world, there's a lot of focus toward fintech, so API-based economy. So I believe those are inevitable areas that we need to focus on. So the problem is, I mean, when you go into those areas, security may become a sort of a afterthought. It should not be the case. So you need to address those upfront. Probably again, there's a lot of, I would say, rather ton of research on this. Even in Sri Lanka, there are a couple of nice reports done by, there's a workforce survey done by PwC and ICTA, I believe. And there are some good articles, rather good research papers published recently. Some from CSSL also I saw. So I would say, depending on what are your critical assets and all that, and then focus on what areas you need to invest. But I would rather recommend, rather than sticking to a vendor specific credentials, look at vendor neutral credentials. So whatever the professionals that you hire, I mean, you know, like they know about at least the reasonable level of cybersecurity.
Thank you, Para. Asela, I'm just going to bounce off a question, and there's a question: are we comparing apple to oranges, or whatever you want to compare with? So what the question is, they're looking at what's happening in the North American region in the kind of attacks. But fortunately, unfortunately, that's the only place where these attacks get published, right? Because they're required by regulation to publish all the attacks. In this part of the region, there is no such mandates. So sometimes we may have attacks which are probably in progress or have occurred, we may not have. So what is the motive for somebody to target a country or an organization in the SAARC region? Just very briefly, Asela, if you could just share a few thoughts on that.
Well, interesting question. Thank you for that. And thank you for whoever asked that in the audience. Well, see, what we have is we take these attacks as the benchmark that could happen here as well. Because, for example, if you take the SolarWinds attack that we spoke about, SolarWinds is used by 425 of the Fortune 500 companies. So it's pertinent that that type of attack will always be replicated, these supply chain attacks. And we have seen definitely supply chain attacks happening in large Sri Lankan corporates, listed Sri Lankan corporates as well. So there is no doubt about that. And like you correctly mentioned, the issue is there is no mandate for an organization of any scale to report or to notify of such a breach to an authority or a law enforcement agency or a watchdog agency. So that is, therein lies the issue. But what we must understand is these attacks give us an indication of where globally we are heading, and that's what's pertinent and that's what's required. And not to forget that Sri Lanka's profile, especially since we're talking about geopolitics as well, Sri Lankan's geopolitical profile is beyond what we are talking economically or the current economic state or current private sector corporate profiles. And given that status, it's absolutely essential that since cybersecurity is looked at as a geopolitical tool used for our countries for their hard and soft power, we must be conscious and we must be aware of where we stand in the cybersecurity and geopolitical equations. We have investments by China under the BRI. We have the Quad, which is India, China, Australia, and America, pressurizing Sri Lanka on different aspects. So we see the geopolitical pressures coming to Sri Lanka, and those same geopolitical pressures will spill over to cyberspace as well. And for us to just focus on a parameter of our own organization parameter or a parameter of local threats is, I think, I would believe, short-sighted Why? Because there are larger threats at play, and if we do keep that short-term, short focus, we might be surprised or we might be caught unaware of a scale of an attack similar to what Ukraine went through in 2015, where it's a massive coordinated attack where power grids were down and the country was completely unusable for about 3 days. And if that type of attack comes and we are not prepared in that sense, and mind you, such an attack of such scale is not unimaginable, given the global context and given what is the Sri Lanka's context as well, even given our digital maturity. So it's always pertinent to look at these threats and to understand and be prepared for them. Just like, we said we thought a tsunami wouldn't come, and yet unfortunately we did face such a situation. Or global terror wouldn't find its shores in Sri Lanka, but it did. So for us to just blissfully ignore something is not wise. And I believe we should keep a focus on the global atmosphere as well, to gain learnings and understandings for our country as well as our organizations. I trust I gave justice to the answer. Please let me know if you need to.
Yes, Asela, yes, you gave a broader perspective, and this is a topic which cannot be structured and handled within an hour, right? Requires a longer duration. So maybe this warrants another session. So this is for Inosh to take note and probably get us back in another session where we could, talk at length about this geopolitics and the region. Right? So just moving on to Nisa. So I'm just wanting to ask you this question, right? I mean, there is this perception that people think the nation states only will attack the governments. All larger companies like Facebook, Google, Cisco, Microsoft. But on the other hand, we are also seeing, especially during the pandemic, we've started seeing a convergence of IT. Like you're talking about Internet of Everything. And today, the regulators are saying, is your risk assessment catering to Internet of Everything? So my question to you is, a very simple question I'm going to ask you is the state actors or non-state actors interested only in the governments, or are they also after the private sector? Region context. Nisa, over to you.
Thanks, Sujit. Yeah, I think, I mean, it's like this. So the broader, if you take the states, states are comprised of the businesses and, it could be large organizations or just one band business, right? So I think, I mean, in the context of cyber attacks or cyber criminals, I think it's not just the state, states or the nations or the critical infrastructure of a country that they kind of attack, but they look at. So the easiest way to get into a country is through the small business that they can find who is vulnerable, right? So I think the criminals, when they look at or rather the threat environment for Sri Lanka and for this region is very high from what I feel. And it could be because of the strategic position of our country, if you take Sri Lanka. But I think, the easiest way is to get in through a private sector or a small business who is kind of appear to be vulnerable. So, and also, Sujit, I think to add to what Parakum said about not having, or rather, to the question earlier, I think what we can look at as a nation is to capacity building, because that's an area that we should seriously look at, even not only Sri Lanka, but Asian or the SAARC as a region. So capacity building is important, and the laws and regulation, because the powerful nations get together, right? So we've seen that EU has this GDPR laws, and the Western has different kind of laws. So powerful nations get together and then make these small nations vulnerable to these kind of attacks. And that is, I think, will happen from attacking to small businesses in the first place. But if you look at losing money, or the the impact for businesses could be much higher than maybe because I mean it's if it's attacked, if I'm a business with like a small group of people, and imagine an attack happens to me, so I will it's basically I will lose everything, right? So the espionage, I think the data theft and attempts to disrupt the day-to-day services also I mean increasingly gone digital. So as our dependency on these digital tools and the online space grows, I think even the malicious cyber activities also now have increased, because they have the tools available, as you said earlier. So I think, yeah, it's not just I mean, states are vulnerable, but the businesses also have this vulnerability.
Absolutely, Nisa, right? I mean, from what I gather from you is the businesses cannot function in isolation.
No,
Countries cannot function in isolation, right?
Exactly.
So now, for example, if I were to build a computer, I'm dependent on different parts, or take for that matter, an automobile company. I have to source my material from different people, right? So even if you look at the food supply chain, or you look at any of the supply chains, right? So especially food, when I talk about food, it's easy to grow vegetables or a crop. The process of harvesting, taking it to a storage, processing it, taking it to the supermarkets, and ensuring that it actually reaches the consumer, you are dependent on technology. And we saw the need for it, right? We saw how we became dependent on supermarkets via digital platforms. Right? So the need is implied, right? So the point, I think, another point which I think you were also trying to articulate is, while insurance is a good thing to have, but I think there are a lot of things you need to do on the ground in terms of deterrence. Asil, I'm just going to come back to you and very quickly ask you, right? I mean, we are seeing state actors, right? Generally we talk about state actors, and then sometimes we forget there are non-state actors as well. Right, and there could be different connotations to it, right? They could be working in isolation, they could be working in groups. And I just want to cite two examples, right? So there was one article which I read about where there is this drone, right? This has acquired the ability to decide what it wanted to do. So it identifies an individual on a particular place and determines that that person was in the wanted list, or he was a bad person. And it decides to take action. Shoots, kills the person. One. And in the recent case, if you talk about what happened in India, Kashmir, right? So there were drone attacks. They're still investigating, where did the drones come, how far the drones can fly. So we are seeing some of the sophisticated technologies which could actually be in the hands of kids or novices, or a person who probably does not understand the consequence. Now, when things like this happens, how should countries react? And where do you draw the line and ensure there is a digital balance? Or, for example, something in the lines of the Geneva Convention. Right. So if you could, relate all these things and give a response to everyone. I know I've asked you a lot of things, but if you can also keep the answers brief, it would be great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Asil.
So good question, Digital Geneva Convention. So if you look at in the context, what you mentioned of state actors or non-state actors acquiring technologies, capabilities, and skills beyond their weight class, let's just say. Because the context of the globe we live now, it's easier to procure a zero-day vulnerability than it is to procure a nuclear weapon. It's less risky, and you can cause more damage. Within that scale and within the disruptions we have, and we see a focus given with the 5G infrastructure upgrades that we're seeing, and the recent spate of critical infrastructure attacks that we're seeing, not only Colonial Pipeline, not only SolarWinds, even smaller instances, or even instances where Pfizer or some of these vaccine researchers were also attacked or targeted for their research. So we see all of these in the context of all of this. It's important for us to, like I mentioned, have a rules-based approach to all of this. So in fact, there is something called the Paris Call that was made in November of 2019, where about 1,000 different individuals and countries got together and requested a few things. One is the trust and security of cyberspace, and that if there is cyber attacks, that civilian infrastructure should be avoided, just similar to Digital Geneva Convention, which is the case that they were taking. This has been led by the French government and Microsoft together, and being backed by a UN expert panel. So, and also the integrity of the election system. So critical national infrastructure, off limits of civilian targets, which are hospitals, which are agencies that would be helped, just as similar to what is mentioned in Geneva Convention, as well as the democratic processes. Because if you see three different cybersecurity incidents that had geopolitical implications. One was, like I mentioned, the attack on the power grids of Ukraine. The other one was the 2016 election interference we saw in the United States. And of course, recently the SolarWinds and the Colonial Pipeline, where we see an impact of global supply chains. We see a global impact as well if it were allowed to blow out of proportion. So in that terminology, I think, yes, we need something of a Digital Geneva Convention. This is what Sri Lanka also needs to strive on. I believe India has not signed or supported this convention, nor has the United States, and that's very critical because they're members of the Quad, as well as they regionally, as well as globally, they do carry a lot of weight. But now, for example, Sri Lanka is a participant to the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. That gives us access to a cross-border cyber attack, at least to the European Union. If it's a distributed attack and some of those assets were placed in the European Union space geographically, we can assist or ask for the assistance of the European Union. So this is the sort of cooperation, coordination, and sort of the global agreement that we require in the global space, as well as the SAARC or our regional Indian Ocean space. Now, one idea I've always mooted is, I know that we ourselves don't have a national SOC yet, we're still in the journey. But one idea that I have mooted to the powers that be is a SAARC SOC or a regional SOC, where we as a region come together and face threats that the entire region can face. Because increasingly globally, our supply chains, our businesses, all are converged. And we're coming just out of a pandemic. Some countries are still in the pandemic. The economic hardship is going to be immense. And because of that, the economic competition among countries and organizations are going to be immense. And there's going to be a lot of friction. That friction will spill over to espionage. As Parakum mentioned, it could be insider threats or nation or non-state actors creating chaos globally. Maybe to disrupt supply chains, maybe to disrupt countries, maybe to disrupt businesses. So if we don't have a common agenda or a common plan, like you correctly said, a Digital Geneva Convention or similar conventions, it is going to be very challenging for one country to face these type of challenges. And this is where we strive to, and this is why entities like the UN or any other global coalition works, because a common approach, a mutual approach among countries will ensure lasting and sustainable results versus one country trying to take action on their own, be it the United States, China, or even little Sri Lanka. I hope.
Absolutely. So that brings us to a very interesting question, right? I mean, I'm not sure whether you could answer this, but I just want to leave it as a remark. Right? Today, what we observe is every country is trying to form their own laws. with respect to cyber, with respect to privacy. On one hand, we are talking about collaboration. On the other hand, every country is trying to fortify their borders and their own information, right? So we'll leave it at that. And then I just want to very quickly, because in essence of time, I just would like to just very quickly go to Para and ask him one question, and then we come back for a quick 30 seconds rapid fire closing remarks. Right, Para? The situation, I mean, if you look at SolarWinds, right, I mean, that's the most talked about, and I think they claim that that's one of the biggest or the largest cyber attack of this century, or maybe even the year 2020, right? It took 8 months for people to notice that there's been an incident. So the attackers had an agenda, and they were very focused what they wanted to do, and they were in no hurry whatsoever. The victim organization did not know until FireEye had an alert in their network. And again, right, it is not the organization, it's another organization, right, which actually detected when they had an alert. In other words, a user had an alert saying, change the two-factor authentication. Right, today we all believe, right, password is not enough, so implement MFA. Now, so different controls are being implemented. So my question to you is, organizations will continue to struggle to implement different detective controls, preventive controls, and so on and so forth. How can organizations in this region do something to prevent an attack of this stature? I mean, people may say we may not have a size of a SolarWinds here, but we do have organizations which are global stature, but not necessarily in the tech field, right? And we have large organizations, right? Very large organizations, their business platforms are built on technology. What are your thoughts for them, takeaways for them? And I think we have about 3 minutes or so.
Yeah, I wouldn't take much time. I mean, if you ask, I mean, I can simply say we can never prevent it. I believe here we are looking at a risk in the supply chain. So if you from an now say, I don't think we can really do everything on our own. You take any company, I mean, now when we were students, we were taught, software engineering is all about reusing, right? Why do you want to design something from the scratch? You put it together and design a car sort of story. So the trick here is, I mean, okay, how far we know the components that we use, whether those can be trusted. So I don't think there's any silver bullet here. But from a risk-based, if you look at risk-based approach, I mean, we can do certain things to vet our suppliers. Could be, what are the processes they adhere to, whether they have any accreditations, could be ISO, could be CMMI. I mean, you could look at even security credentials, PCI, all that. So this SolarWinds, I mean, even though it started with a sort of a back channel, but later on, I think they discovered so many attack vectors and they were harvesting on credentials, and it impacted, I think, global players like Microsoft also. So I would suggest like to go back and probably look at this from a design perspective, first principles of design. So probably again, I would go back. It's not something new. This I know now. Currently, we are talking a lot about this zero trust model, right? So I would say, I mean, rather than basically you can give access rules based on your user's identity, application. I mean, so you going into behavioral monitoring. So they can't really, abuse their privileges. Then again, we would probably need the controls we talked about earlier, like things like machine learning to see whether there are any exceptions, whether this is a normal behavior and all that. And another issue that we have is, I think, other panelists also touched it. I mean, some organizations in many instances, they may not know that they have been breached. So in security world, we call this mean time to detect. So I believe in case of this with the central bank, Heist Bangladeshi, what FII was telling, the mean time to detect in this part of the region or world, it's somewhere about 180 days or 6 months. In Asia, our region, it's actually far worse. So probably should look at how soon we can detect if something like this happen. It could be, I mean, many things. So probably organizations may look into threat intel feeds also, right? I mean, these are not really costly affairs, but rather than having information on silos, we can, I mean, even if you search right now on platforms, you will see data belonging to certain Sri Lankan corporations are also there. So probably again, in many cases, what happens is, unless somebody else, as you rightly said, even a customer, somebody else tells it, still the organization may not know, right? By the time damage may already be done. So probably my take is probably again, we should take a step back and look at these models like zero trust, and then not take trust for granted, but trust should be earned sort of approach. So go back to basics, I would say, Sujit.
Thank you, Para. And I think in essence of time, I'm just not going to go with this rapid 30 seconds question. But if you have one single thought which you can share for the viewers, we'll start with Asela, Para, and Nisa. If you can very quickly say one thing, right? What is that you would tell the people that they should be doing in order to minimize the risk? Asela?
Well, that's a bit of a wide thing, but keep changing your passwords.
Good one. That's a good one. Yes, like how you change your toothbrush. Right?
Toothbrush to password is a good ratio, and keep changing that. Multi-factor authentication, cyber hygiene, just like we are washing our hands, social distancing, and wearing a mask in the cyber world. I think we should have those measures permanently. Because this pandemic will go away, God willing, but cyber world, the pandemic is continuing, and we must be and constantly vigilant.
Absolutely. Thank you, Asila. Nisa?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the problems of cyberspace is not technical. So I think we need our education system to have cybersecurity as a curriculum. And also we need more diversity in cybersecurity, because that is the only way we can elevate our threat intelligence and fight against cybercrime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Para, closing thoughts?
Yeah, I would say go with the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. So
absolutely, KISS. Correct. So thank you, Asela, Parakom, Nisa, for taking time to share your experience, your insights. So in conclusion, right, what is my takeaway from this session? You cannot trust anyone, right? The whole supply chain should be treated as untrusted entity. In other words, the principle of whitelisting should be taken off the vocabulary in the IT department. Never trust, always verify. So adopt the zero trust principle. And also ensure a framework, maybe a NIST framework, which can be used to manage the risk, right? So a risk-based approach should be also adopted. So the threat advisories, nation state, non-nation states, they will continue to exist because they are always continuing to leverage, not necessarily to, earn money, because today, if you really look at the Bitcoin market, it has kind of crashed. right? So, but then they may not be looking at money, but they may be looking at other information so that they can actually dominate, control, demand, and coerce people to certain decisions, right? So with that thought, I very quickly want to thank Articulate, Inosh and team, and IIT for the opportunity you gave us. And I'm sure you're aware, this is the first in the series, so we're going to have another 3 more, but Inosh also was telling me that we have now an opportunity to come back and talk about the same topic, maybe a very focused topic under this subject. So with that, I just want to thank you all again. So stay safe, take care, and we'll hand the session back to Inosh. Rasula, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sujit. Wow, that was quite an amazing session. So, of course, I'd like to start off by thanking Mr. Parakum, Mr. Asela, and Mrs. Nisa for taking this time, coming out here today, and spending this 1 hour for this quite enlightening and interesting topic with us today. And of course, I would like to thank Mr. Sujit as well. That was quite an amazing flow of topics, conversations, and questions. So thank you so much for moderating today's conversation as well. And of course, I'd like to mention our audience as well. We had a staggering amount of responses today. The responses and questions from our audience was overwhelming. And of course, if you were intrigued and you are excited about today's conversation, we do have plenty more coming up your way, as mentioned by Mr. Sujit, in the coming days as well. So please do stay tuned for that. And I believe that is all she wrote. And with that, we can wind up today's session with a quote from Mr. Asela: "Stay safe and change your password." Bye.